Welcome to another episode of OG55. We got Zach from Boardwalk Times back on the channel. We're talking about Destination D. We're talking about our predictions. What might we expect out of this event coming up very, very soon? We also might dip into some D23 from last year, kind of a follow-up from the last conversation we had with Zach on the show. We're going to talk about some of that stuff because a lot of new developments have come out since D23. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. Zach, Boardwalk Times, in the house, OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to the episode of OG55. We have a very special guest with us today. We got Zach of Boardwalk Times here. We're going to discuss Destination D, dip into some D23 2024. Zach, welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me back on. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I can't wait to talk shop with you. If you can remind everybody where they can find you on social media and what you guys do over there at Boardwalk Times.
Of course, you can follow us at Boardwalk Times on all social media platforms. And Boardwalk Times is basically the Disney news you care about, and that's what we cover. We cover the business of Disney. We cover the parks, Disney Plus. We cover like everything regarding the Walt Disney Company. And you can find our website at boardwalktimes.net as well. So yeah, just follow us on social media at Boardwalk Times. And I think, your audience will like what we put out because I know you're a fan as well.
I'm a huge fan. I love what you guys do. Everybody at home, if you are not following Boardwalk Times, do it. Absolutely do it. I'll be linking everything down in the description down below. A must follow if you're a Disney fan. 100%.
Thank you.
So yeah, no problem. Zach, let's get the party started. Destination D is vastly approaching, and we got the schedule for Saturday and Sunday. We got August 30th and the 31st. A lot of different stuff going on here. Now, there has been a little bit of like fan controversy with some of this stuff, right? We don't see a parks panel.
Yes. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's indicative of anything, or do you think that there might be some surprise thing that we're not aware of that they're kind of hiding from us right now?
It's such a tough thing to kind of analyze here because I think everyone, when they go and they pay for Destination D23, you're expecting that parks panel. You're expecting the Josh D'Amaro keynote. Yet it seems like in recent years, Disney has been trying to distance itself from that and like not be like, hey, we're not going to always do parks announcements at these events. Like, hey, the big D23, that's where we're going to go all out. This one's more like the history and like, smaller kind of news. But I actually think that their strategy for this weekend for Destination D23, I think it's going to be interspliced within some of these panels, and they're going to drop, I would say there's good chances of some news just because I feel like they're going to want to make the crowd happy at some points. And I do think the decision not to do the parks panel was kind of curious because if you look on day one, August 30th, you have that Walt Disney Studios showcase. And I find that really interesting because in years past for this event, they weren't always big on bringing in stuff from, the film studios or the television side or Disney Plus. Like that was never really their thing at this event. So I'm very curious how they're going to go about all this. But yeah, I think you're going to see some parks news throughout these panels across the 2 days.
Yeah, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have sworn in 2015, which is a decade ago now, which is crazy to me, you know, that D23, the announcement for Galaxy's Edge, the Bob Iger, when Bob Iger got on stage and infamously said, we're not building one, we're building two. I could have sworn that was at the studio panel for Lucasfilm.
Okay, so you see, I wish I would have, kind of remembered this. I think that you were right. And I do think, I did say we might get parks news throughout these panels. I wouldn't rule out Walt Disney Studios Showcase actually giving us some parks news. And I'll give you a good example. I think if they're promoting The Mandalorian and Grogu, which comes out in May 2026, and also in May 2026, you're getting the update to Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run on the same day that film releases. I think during the Walt Disney Studio Showcase at D23, if you're lucky enough, if they do the BDX droids, and they might actually promote that update coming out in 2026. But yeah, I think the Walt Disney Studio Showcase could be this like maybe a sneaky panel here for actual news of the weekend, just because it's kind of kicking off the event. And I mean, I hope for Parks fans they'll get some things out of that. And then I think the other one is the villains. I think the villains one, I mean, it would be kind of crazy if they don't if they don't at least tease something.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zach. I mean, the villains won at 9:05 a.m. on Sunday the 31st, right? Disney Villains Icons of Evil. You could put that Villains Land, you could put some Villains Land details in there seamlessly,
Yes.
And now it's been a year out from that official announcement at D23 that we were all at last year. They have to have some more details since then, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Internally to share. I'm sure something,
They have to. And one of my biggest predictions for this Destination D23 event, before obviously we found out there was no Parks panel, it seems like there's not going to be a Josh D'Amaro keynote. Before all that, one of my biggest predictions was that Disney was going to unveil the official name of Villains Land. And a lot of people were like, what are you talking about? Aren't they going to just call it Villains Land? Well, I've kind of heard just through the grapevine that that's not going to be the case. Maybe the general audience will still call it Villains Land, but there's going to be like an in-universe name for this land, similar to how like Batuu, Galaxy's Edge, like it's not just Star Wars Land. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I think there could be something here. And to me, I was thinking maybe that's the reveal during Disney Villains Icons of Evil, but I mean, it could be a very simple tease. I mean, they don't have to they don't really have to go overboard this weekend, I would say. I feel like if they just gave us these like kind of soft updates, I think people will be fine.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Just give us these soft updates on some of these projects that they've already announced. The name to Villains Land would be a great thing to throw in here. Maybe even some vague details as to what kind of attraction the Big E ticket is going to be.
Oh yes, that would be wonderful if they said, "Hey, it's going to be a boat ride," or "This is going to be a coaster we've never done before." Like, I think that is something they can do, because I mean, if you look at some of the other projects they announced last year, it's like they told us they were doing that Cars attraction in Frontierland at the Magic Kingdom, and they didn't reveal the ride system, but it's like you already know there's going to be an attraction. You already kind of know what it looks like, this rally race. So I would hope they would do that for Villains. I do want to point out, though, is that I think Imagineering under Bruce Vaughn, we're going to see a big strategy change. I listened to his podcast he did with WDW Radio, and Bruce Vaughn during that podcast seems like he's not going to reveal too much concept art in the future, or he even specifically mentioned the Abu Dhabi park and how they made the concept art so abstract that you can't take anything from it. So I do think in the future we're going to get more abstract concept art, or things that won't, because I think, concept art might have burned them in the past. And I think that's something he's trying to pivot away from, that, hey, you're not going to see it until it's a finished product, and it might change how people view some of these projects from here on out.
I love that because he's right on that. We've talked about a lot here on the channel where people get kind of mentally married to the artwork, and then if it doesn't come out exactly brick by brick exactly how it is in the art, people get upset and they get disappointed,
Yeah. Or they think, what could have been? There could have been a restaurant right here. There could have been a cafe over there, another attraction. I mean, it becomes a really big what if game.
It does. And one of the advantages, like, there's a gift and the curse to a lot of this stuff, right? Like, so Disney has the gift of like having these big events, the D23s, the Destination Ds. These are cool events, and they really generate a lot of hype for Disney, the company in general, their parks, all that good stuff. That's a massive pro for the Walt Disney Company. But there is a downside to it, which is what you were saying with the concept art, where they're sort of, not even sort of, they are like obligated to announce stuff. So they get up there on stage and they show the big concept art to get people excited, which it does. But then now you have to sort of like go through that design process, and along the way things get cut just with every project, and now you're risking disappointing fans, where Universal doesn't really have that. This is one advantage Universal kind of has over Disney, is that they don't have like Universal Con, you know?
Oh yeah, they don't have their own D23. They don't, even though in the past I've thought about they should do something in Orlando, because I think they would make a lot of money that weekend. You know what I mean? I think there's someone probably there that's like, ooh, that would be a really fun idea. But you're totally right on that. I think that is one of the advantages that Universal has over Disney, is like they just will go and build it, where it's like Disney, like let's say if they announced or they told us, hey, the villains attraction, we're going to use new augmented reality technology. And let's say a year later, while they're developing this project, that AR company goes bankrupt or something. Like, you know, it's like there's little things that I think so much changes in their development process that I can see why Bruce Vaughn is going to be like, let's keep these details to the chest. Like, hey, maybe this weekend we don't even find out what the Encanto like dark ride's going to be, because, you know, maybe it's like for the best. We don't know until 2027, until, you know, the media goes sees it. You know what I mean? It would be crazy. But I don't know. This weekend's gonna be super telling on if they're going to give us more details about the parks, or if they're trying to pivot this event to be more of a general, a taste of D23, and they maybe rely more on the studios to give us those big like news bursts, or if they're just trying to remind fans that, hey, this is a fan event about like the history of Disney. Like, this is the event you go to when you want to learn more about Exitencio and Roy P. Disney and like the Three Caballeros. And I think maybe, or the Goofy movie too. It's like Emperor's New Groove. Like, it's like this hardcore Disney fan event. But I think with Disney, they're having trouble like pitching that to the general like Disney fans, because I think the general Disney fans, anytime they see D23, even the people who cover this stuff, they think announcements, they think major news, new rides, new lands, everything.
Everything. Yeah, because I think the last Destination D, was it the last one? I might have been the last one. We got some Downtown Disney news. We got some art for Downtown Disney. Like, I think it was the last one a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But it wasn't super park heavy though in that one either, you know. And now it seems like they're kind of even, maybe a little bit even less than that, you know. And they're trying to kind of pivot away from that, at least from where we sit right now. We'll see how it actually ends up. But it seems like they're trying to sort of make this event a different kind of thing. It's not going to be the big announcement, a kind of panel like event like we see at D23, you know, usually. So, you know, go ahead.
And I think they want the D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan event, which they do in Anaheim every other year. So it's like in 2026, I think they're going to go all out again.
Yeah.
And I think they might be trying to really figure out their strategy with this, but it's kind of hard to do an event like this where you're like, hey, you know, it's a 2-day event. You can either pay $300 or $500 or whatever the ticket costs are. And then, you know, obviously there's some expectations there that you're going to get news or you're going to get something exclusive. And that's not always the case. And it will be interesting to see how just this weekend goes with news, because I think in 2023, you had like Test Track being reimagined. That was the news. You don't get any like major news. But obviously, you know, some of these we were like, okay, they're still coming out of the pandemic. Then there was one where it's like, hey, this is, you know, Bob Iger's back now, you know, in 2023. Different things. And then obviously last year they went all out at the Honda Center. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this year. They have so many projects in development right now. It would be hard to imagine them not at least having some news that slips through the cracks naturally, because I think that has happened before at this event. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's been some times where people will say stuff on stage and it's news to us, essentially. So it might have not been news to the Imagineer on stage, but it's news to the audience. So I think that could really happen again, just with some of these panels. I mean, to me, one that looks very curious is that India
Yeah.
presentation. They're doing at 11:30. This whole Disney around the globe thing is very interesting. Like, what are we talking about here? You know, what are we? What's could be the idea?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually going to talk about that next. That's perfect segue, Zach. Because we have Disney around the globe. We have Disney around the globe China, right? We have Disney around the globe France, and we have Disney around the globe Japan. Now, those three, I can see, obviously, we're going to get some park, maybe not announcements, but at least a lot of references and
Tutorials.
yes, exactly,
Like,
of the
yeah.
of the Japanese parks, the Chinese parks, and the France park. So those make sense, and I can see some of that park stuff sprinkled into that. But what's interesting is that India panel. We don't have a park in India. We don't know of
No.
a park going into India. So what's the India thing? That's interesting.
I'm curious on the India thing as well because I don't really know Disney's ties with India's well. I mean, obviously, Destination D23 this year, it's at the Coronado Springs Resort at Walt Disney World. They're really leaning into some of the classic like Three Caballeros and like some of like that like kind of culture within Coronado Springs and such. But like India to me is such an interesting one where it's like, what are we thinking here? Like, if they would have done like, oh, Disney around the globe, Brazil, you would have been like, that fits the theme of this weekend. Or
Right.
Disney around the globe, it's the United Arab Emirates. And it's like, okay, Abu Dhabi, that's where the next resort's going. India's interesting. India, I'm, I don't think we're gonna get, the major news or anything, but it is just kind of fascinating. That was one of the countries they picked to highlight because if I recall a couple months ago, it was rumored that Universal was exploring some kind of local experience in India, like similar to a like Horror Unleashed or a Universal Kids, like what they're doing in Texas. And India obviously is like this emerging economy, so there
Right.
was like this kind of there's always been this theme park intrigue around India, or like an experience intrigue, because it's like, oh, their middle class is growing. And that's one of the key things that was mentioned in the Abu Dhabi statement was like,
Right.
oh, the India's middle class is going to help this park. But now I'm just very interested in like what's that panel going to even be about. And also when you look at the timing, it's only 5 minutes,
Yeah, that's
which
interesting.
is weird.
Yeah.
This schedule, they're going to run over. Like,
Yeah.
you like, don't you think like
See, see,
yeah,
here's the interesting thing about that. That's why I didn't even notice that. Excellent, Isaac. It's a 5 minute panel around the globe in India. I hate to do this because I don't want to get people's expectations up there, and then it's like it doesn't happen. It's something totally
yeah,
different. But that screams to me like the optics, a big reveal, like a park coming to India. Here's the concept art, yay, and it's 5 minutes. Like that's what that looks
would be
like to me,
crazy. Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
something like to that effect, or maybe not even a full park. Like you were saying, maybe it's a like what Universal just opened in Vegas, like a standalone venue, like a smaller kind of thing. But
Disney Springs, India. Like, are we gonna start testing the Disney brand? Where it's like some of these locations that have never been considered for like the big destination resorts. Maybe India and Brazil will get these like smaller, entertainment shopping destinations. I don't know. Maybe that's the business plan there. I'm
it's
curious.
I'm super curious because 5 minutes only gives you time for basically an announcement. I mean, they can't dive into the history, like any kind of like meat and potatoes with that in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that they're going to announce. It could also be cruise line related.
Oh, I think that might be the more probable thing. Is it could be cruise line related. They have a lot of ships coming out. That could be it. That could
Right.
be it. Maybe one of the next ships they're going to, be like, hey, this is going to be, one of the ports or something like that. I mean, yeah. And when you're looking at like Disney around the globe, Japan, and you're looking at, the other ones, they're all 5 minutes, but it's like you can also be like for the China one, for Japan, it's just easy to kind of imagine. In France, like it's easy to imagine like those are sizzle reels for
Right.
like, hey, hypothetically, this audience is going to be majority Americans, and it's going to be like, hey, you guys should really go visit our other parks
Right.
across the globe. And like for
Absolutely.
Japan's sake, they're going to build a cruise ship as well with Disney for Disney Cruise Line. So maybe there's a tie in there as well during their announcement, or I mean during their 5 minutes, maybe they'll cue something up. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting. But the India one, that caught my eyes on the schedule, because it's like, it's not like they can do a big like, oh, when Walt Disney visited India, because I don't
Yeah.
think that story exists.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. There's not much there to really do other than like some new thing they want to build there. Maybe they'll have like a port, or like a resort hotel over there on the water themed to Jungle Book or something, or the cruise line or something. But yeah, definitely keep an eye out for the India panel. That's going to be very interesting to see what they fill the 5 minutes with. Another thing that I'm kind of curious about, we have this panel here at 3 p.m. This is a half an hour, creating the happiest place on earth, right?
Yeah.
Now, the bulk of that, I think, will definitely be obviously what they're selling us, which is creating. So it'll be the building of the park. It took a year and a day, and Walt and his dream. You're going to see all that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But I can also see, and this is hypothetical, some new stuff sprinkled at the very end, because you can kind of package it like, okay, we just spent 20 minutes showcasing how this amazing place was built back in 1955. Here's the future, though. This is what the resort is going to have going forward. And here are some details on Coco. Here are some details on Pandora. Here are some details, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, where it kind of gives you the past, but then a little bit of a glimpse of what we might see going forward. Very similar actually to the Walt Disney animatronic. When you come out of that show, they do have some just references to Pandora and the new stuff. So maybe something like that.
I could see that. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that creating the happiest place on earth panel is going to be hosted by Leslie Iwerks and Don Hahn.
Oh,
so
okay.
my big prediction there actually is I think they're going to announce the Imagineering story season 2, and it's going to be a Leslie Iwerks / Don Hahn production, where Don will direct some episodes and Leslie will direct some episodes. And I think they're going to just say, hey, season 2 is in development here because we have so many projects going on across all of the experiences, including Disneyland, which, they can then, name check Coco and
Right.
Avatar, Avengers, which is going to be big. I mean, you have so much going on there. I think with those two, when I saw that on the list, I was like, okay, those two together, they're both really into Disney. They're historians. And then it clicked. I'm like, they're both documentary filmmakers.
Bingo.
Wouldn't that be kind of a cool, thing to do? And we already see it with like Imagineering does like the We Call It Imagineering on YouTube. But I mean, the Imagineering story getting like a second season, or even if it's not a second season, if it's a spin-off with, Don Hahn and Leslie Iwerks doing something, I think that's almost like that's kind of another good announcement for this weekend if they want to. But I do like the whole, hey, let's preview what's happening at Disneyland. I know aren't they building like that new kind of gateway to get into the parks as well and stuff like that. I mean, they have a lot that's going to happen. That resort's going to change quite a bit. So I think that could be an easy way to kind of hype up Disneyland as well, because usually this is a very Walt Disney World centered event, because it's on Walt Disney World property. But I think it's become an event that fans want to hear updates from everywhere, essentially. And that's become, they need to figure that out, because the fans want the love for everything now.
Domestic parks are huge. Obviously, that's home base for a lot of us, right? Like the Disneyland and Walt Disney World. So yeah, fans are going to want some of that, So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. But I think you're hit the nail on the head. It's probably going to be season 2. I think that's a very high chances. The fact that Leslie is involved and Don Hahn, I will almost certainly.
Yeah, I just think that is something that Disney would be crazy not to pursue it, because I mean, you're reducing your content spending on Disney Plus. You're no longer giving us that, major Star Wars series every year, or you're not giving us these big budget shows besides maybe a few. And I think something like the Imagineering story just makes too much sense, where it it will get, your core fans on the platform watching stuff, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to produce. Like, you're going to be able to do this, and it's high quality content. And yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense. And Don Hahn's one of those gifted documentary filmmakers that I think him being involved with season 2 in this kind of scenario, it would be just a perfect match if they went that route.
Oh, I love Don Hahn. He is a Disney legend in every sense of the word. I mean, Beauty and the Beast is my favorite Disney animated movie of all time. I think that movie is an absolute treasure. I think Beauty and the Beast, honestly, even rivals or even surpasses some of the Walt Disney stuff. I mean, that was a gorgeous film, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No
So,
doubt. Yeah.
yeah.
I think it is, like, I think if you're ranking Disney films, that one's at the top, near the top of the list for sure. I mean, yeah, Don Hahn he's done amazing work with Disney, but I think his legacy of covering Disney as like this historian and documentary filmmaker,
Oh, yeah.
fantastic. Whether it's writing the books or like making something like Waking Sleeping Beauty, I mean, he's just figured it out. Just so much respect to him.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one other thing too I want to discuss is on the 31st at 2:50, we got this Beyond the Spires, a look at the Disney castles. Now, here's a little
Yeah.
speculation. Now, I don't think this is going to happen because it's still kind of a fresh announcement. But you mentioned Abu Dhabi, and that castle is very unique for Disney. That crystal castle. I
Yes.
wonder if we're going to get some kind of, maybe not artwork, maybe not like visual stuff, but maybe some descriptions as to what we can expect with this new version of the castle for Abu Dhabi. What you think that's a possibility? Obviously, it's kind of new, so they might not have anything concrete for us, obviously, like artwork or anything. But you think there might be some news on that, possibly?
I mean, I would, there's always a chance. I think, Bob Iger, when Abu Dhabi was announced, he said it would be like the first modern castle that Disney has done. So a lot of people are assuming it's going to be glass, or it's going to be crystal, or it's going to be like really unique looking in shape and size. Obviously, they're not paying for Abu Dhabi, so they can probably go crazy with this as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but also I just, you just have to wonder with that park and it being indoors basically. Like, obviously I'm just very curious how they would do it, just because if the majority of the park is going to be indoors, would this castle be outdoors? Like, I mean, it's just stuff to think about that I don't even know if they have these answers yet. But I do think that is a sneaky panel for news across all like the Disney parks, because I know a lot of Walt Disney World fans are clamoring for the dream lights to come back around Christmas time, when they would put lights on the castle and how nice it would look. I mean, but I would still say there's a shot for Abu Dhabi to get a mention there.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too. I'm very curious with Abu Dhabi because you're right. It's gonna be mostly indoors. How they kind of work the castle element. That's a great question that you bring up there, Zach, because it's like, man, are they going to have it indoors? I don't think so. I don't think they'll have the castle indoors at least. But there's an opportunity there with this because Disney has kind of mastered the grand reveal where like you go through a tunnel and you come out the other end and there's this big grand reveal. You can kind of do something very similar with this Abu Dhabi castle where like really the first time ever in a Disney park, you don't see the castle from all the way down like Main Street. Maybe you go through like some sort of themed tunnel thing that you really can't see the castle when you're in this tunnel thing. At the very end of that tunnel, you come out of it and you this gorgeous castle. It just hits you right at the end, you know?
Yeah, I think that would be actually, I think that might be the approach. And also I think another approach, this castle might be right on the water. I think because
Oh,
they keep on teasing that they want to, that, Diamaro kept on saying when they announced Abu Dhabi that this is going to be the first like Disney resort where they really get to play with water more, even more so than Disney Sea, I feel. So it's like they're going to be on that like coastline in Abu Dhabi. That's what the Moral group gave them. And maybe the castle is going to be like right on that coast, like similar to when they were taking those photos for press when they did the announcement. Maybe it'll be somewhere around there, and you'll have that castle backdrop, and then it will be the ocean behind it, and it's like just one of those like crazy like visuals that like you don't typically see.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the case. I don't know. Abu Dhabi is like one of those projects that I'm like, whoa, I don't know how they're going to do it, because it's like, if the weather was better, then it would be a no-brainer on what this park would look like. But
Yeah.
because of the weather being so wacky and like, so hot and stuff, it will be fascinating to see how they, kind of do this project.
Yeah, no, well said, well said. And like you said, like you also said too, that Disney isn't fitting the bill for this.
No,
So
yeah,
it's, we've seen before when like with OLC in Japan, when Disney doesn't pay for it and you have a company that's willing to like spend big bucks, magic happens.
it does. And
Right?
I think everyone's just hoping that the morale is like OLC. Like they're hoping that they're just like they demand, just really good quality attractions, and that Imagineering can let loose and create some amazing things. I mean, I think everyone's just hoping for the best, that like it's not like, that like that they actually make really good stuff, and it's not like, just kind of like, oh, what an indoor Disney theme park you would think of in your head, where you're like, this is a mall, or like,
Right.
what I mean?
Oh,
That
totally.
that
Yeah.
would be kind of a disappointment, or like, oh, this is Disney Quest, but in Abu Dhabi. You know what I mean? Like, I think everyone's kind of hoping that this, group can really bring the best out of Disney and vice versa.
Yeah, well said, well said. And the last thing I want to touch upon before we go on to D23 of last year
Yeah.
and how all that turned out or is turning out.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. You're watching Disney Channel. Okay, so
Oh, yes.
right, I kind of want to talk about this because the landscape is changing in Hollywood, not just Disney, across the board. I mean, streaming is the new thing for at least television, right? Especially, linear TV is really kind of a melting ice cube, so to speak. It's like as I like to
Sure.
call it, right?
Yeah.
Disney Channel is really a relic of like cable TV, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, it is.
Of years past or whatever. But it seems like lately Disney has really leaned into Disney Channel. We have a whole panel for 45 minutes of Disney Channel, and that weekend. I mean, that's wild to me. We just had a Disney Channel after hours thing at Disneyland not too long ago. I mean, they're leaning into this. Do you think that this has become like Disney Channel has transcended the channel and has become almost like a brand in and of itself, where like if by chance linear dies out completely or cable, Disney Channel itself dies out, the Disney Channel branding would live on, like say on Disney Plus? Do you think they're kind of moving this thing in that direction possibly?
Yes, I think that's exactly what they're doing. I think you still have a couple more years left of linear TV and cable. I think they're going to ride that train until the train, frankly, until the tracks like no longer exist, like until every single person is no longer using Xfinity, Comcast, and everyone's on whatever, streaming TV that they have, which, hey, by then I just hope everyone's internet really works, because it will suck if it doesn't. But I think Disney Channel, they're now realizing with Gen Z who grew up with that golden age of Disney Channel. I'm talking about like Hannah Montana, High School Musical, Camp Rock, Wizards of Waverly Place, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, all those shows. I think they've now realized Disney Channel is this brand that that a lot of people have affinity for, and it's almost like a IP in a way, which they used like last year for that Disney Channel night at Disneyland. And
Right.
now I think what will happen, and they might be actually doing this because they were testing it out this summer actually with their Disney Plus does this feature called Streams, 24/7 playlists where you're just nonstop content, and they had a throwback stream, and a lot of it was primarily Disney Channel content. Now I believe in the future those streams are going to be very prominent on Disney Plus, and I believe that's where Disney Channel is going to live on as Disney Channel on Disney Plus. And whenever they do one of these zombies or Descendants movies, instead of branding it as a Disney original movie like they did for Disney Plus, they're going to just be like, this is a Disney Channel original movie. And, you know, that will be what happens. I really think it will live on as a brand. And if not, it will live on as like that kind of nostalgic brand that,
Right.
you know, like Gen Z likes, where it's like, oh, remember this network that had all these good, you know, Disney type things on it.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, I think that's what it will happen. But I think if they're looking long term, I think, yeah, you have to incorporate Disney Channel into Disney Plus. And I really do think a 24/7 stream of Disney Channel, whether it's mixing modern and, you know, maybe some of the old school throwback shows, I think it would be a very popular feature for them, because people would probably throw it on as either background noise, or if they have nothing to watch, throw that on. I mean, I think it would work. And
Oh, I would love.
curious what happens at D23 though. I mean, I'm curious, are they like, what do you talk about for 45 minutes though? It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by that. I love that idea too of having a 24/7 stream of Disney Channel. You can even throw in like the old school bumpers with the, you
Yeah.
know, the channel
Yeah.
logo stuff, and really have fun with
100%.
that, you know?
Music videos, like the bumpers and the music videos. Like, I think if they could try to replicate that experience on streaming, it would be great. And I think that would be the ideal situation. Or, you know, in the future when Disney Plus, obviously a lot of people are going to probably have to, you know, these streams, even if you're not paying for an ad tier, they're going to probably have ads within your like non-ad Disney Plus, just because that's how like live programming works sometimes, is that you have to have breaks in between
Right.
shows or something. I I could see them, maybe Disney Channel is the rare one where it's like, instead of actual ads for, you know, Google or whatever, it will be those Disney Channel bumpers like, hey, you're watching Disney Channel, and then it's like you're
What
just watching it on Disney Plus. I think that'd be a good idea.
It'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun. So let's go on from Destination D. Now we're gonna kind of go back a little bit to D23 Ultimate Fan Event, where we got to all hang out there last year. It was a lot of fun. Had a blast. Really, really cool. Now they announced some big stuff that, you know, at that park panel, obviously. And one of the big things we talked about a little bit earlier on was Villains Land, you know. What are your expectations for this land now that we have the announcement, and now that, you know, this thing is full steam ahead, basically, right? They're closing down the rivers of America. It's already shut down. I think they've even
Yeah.
drained the water now already. I mean, Cars Land and Villains are moving in, you know.
Yeah.
What's your expectation for this? Can Disney make a Villains Land where they balance like genuine creepiness of the villains, like, and also maintaining that family friendly vibe, where obviously, you know, you don't want to go too scary, you don't want to go HHN, you know,
Sure. Yeah.
but you don't want to go too sugary either, where it's like not a true Villains Land. Do you think Disney's gonna kind of balance that nicely, or is that a real challenge for them?
It depends on what this land sets out to do. And I think that's going to be the key, is like, I think there's two different kind of ideas of Villains Land right now. Is that there's Villains Land where it's like they're leaning into the classic Walt Disney Animation Studios villains, and you're going to have Hades, and you're going to have Captain Hook and Maleficent, and, you know, everyone just in these attractions. Or you'll have it where it's more, you know, Chernobog, and like it's actually kind of a scarier land, and some of these attractions are maybe a bit more scarier. I feel like they're going to find this middle ground within the land. I feel like it's going to be basically like this twisted fantasy land almost, where it's like
Right.
an opposite of Fantasyland, and it's going to be kind of just dark and twisted. I think it's going to be really different from Universal's Dark Universe. Actually, I know a lot of people are like, there's going to be a natural comparison, obviously, because, you know, classic monsters, classic villains, like it's kind of an easy thing to bunch together. But I think this one, they're going to lean into that kind of like dark but twisted woodsy Fantasyland type. And if they do like a Chernobog coaster or Maleficent coaster, or if they do a boat ride, and like, it'll just depend to me, OG, like, what is the story here? Like, I've seen some
Right.
speculation online, like this wasn't from any like Disney Parks blogs or anything, but there's some fans who are like, well, in the Disney card game Lorcana, I guess there's stuff with villains, and then in Kingdom Hearts there's stuff with villains. So like everyone was like speculating like, will this land tie into something? And it'll be interesting. What is the story of this land going to be? Because with how Imagineering works, it's going to have an elaborate backstory. I mean, like look at Galaxy's Edge. They
Oh, yeah.
wrote a whole side quest for DJ Rex. I mean, they're going to, it will be just curious to me. Do they do an attraction where you see multiple Disney villains from different film franchises interact? I mean, I think
Wow.
that's the biggest thing to me. It's like, are we going to see like a boat ride with Hades, but within that ride, you might also see Jafar? Like I'm just seeing what are going to be the rules of this land, and like meet and greets and like stuff like how is this going to work? So it's like it's so exciting for us because like I don't think anyone really knows what they're going
Yes.
to do.
Right, because you could do that's a cool idea of the villains interacting with each other. And what that kind of reminds me of, like say for the big E ticket, you have all
Yeah,
these villains interacting with each other to cause chaos and what have you. Very phantasmic-y vibes there, you know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah.
And that would be a lot of fun. I would like that, where it's like that creepy, like we're gonna take over kind of vibe. But Ursula is working with like Jafar, and they're all kind of there together to do this stuff. That's pretty sick, dude. I like that a lot. You know?
I mean, I think it would be a really fun idea. And in the past, I've thought like, hey, maybe Villains Land will maybe continue the story of Haunted Mansion. Maybe they have an opportunity to expand the Haunted Mansion lore. Maybe they finally do the Haunted Mansion bar, as a way, they'll have extra space now because they have to, build out, around Haunted Mansion to do cars and villains and all that. And maybe Haunted Mansion will be involved as well. I mean, they have so many opportunities with this land. I just do think it'll be interesting to see how do they go? How does this work? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's going to be fascinating to see. And I know the other day they were like surveying guests, and some were like the Horn King from like Black Cauldron, I
Oh,
think. I mean, like just different things that like different villains that you like just probably aren't expecting, that might show up, might walk around, and it'll just be interesting to see how they kind of make this work, because obviously this has been something that a lot of people have wanted, but it's interesting. It's like, what do people want out of this?
yeah. No, absolutely. This has been decades of expectations, really, because I've been in the community since a long time. I mean, like
Sure.
AOL dial up
Wow.
with the
Yeah, yeah,
Disney
yeah.
with the Disney news groups on AOL, you know. And I remember back then in like the late 90s ish, people were wanting a villains park back then, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
Right.
And this is going to at least be something. It's going to
Right.
be a pretty massive land and expansion. But I just wonder, what's the story going to be? What are these attractions going to be? Like, what else kind of, the Magic Kingdom after this, though? I mean, what a loaded park. You
Oh
just wonder,
yeah.
how do you even like, I think, and obviously what's so lovely about the Disney fandom is like there's just no sleep for Disney fans, where it's like I've already started to hear like rumors like, okay, yeah, but like after Cars and Villains, maybe Adventureland's gonna get that Moana boat ride, or like
Yeah.
Tomorrowland's gonna get this. And it's like you're like, whoa, this is so crazy to even think about.
Oh, it's wild. And the other thing too are the meet and greets. That I'm really wondering about the meet and greets, because if they go the more creepy, scary vibe, are you going to have the big rubber head Captain Hook, or are they going to have more face characters to sort of blend into this environment a little better? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's also
So,
it's like, what are these restaurants like? What's going to be the story here? I mean, one of the popular Villains Land fan theories. Have you heard the magic mirror theory yet?
no, I don't believe I have. What's the magic mirror theory?
I've seen it from a couple different people. So if anyone's watching and they're like, "Oh, Zach just stole my theory or something," I apologize. I've just seen this like everywhere. I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it just on websites and stuff. There's this kind of theory that like the magic mirror is going to basically be the one who brings all the villains together into his dimension,
Oh, okay.
essentially. And like people I think were maybe basing that off of because they did that Villains Unfairly Ever After show at Hollywood Studios. The magic mirror plays a pretty big part in that. And I don't know, maybe that will be the thing where it's like the magic mirror kind of becomes the big bad of the land, essentially.
Right.
He brings all them together because you bring up the meet and greets with like Captain Hook, but it's like, to me, it's like, how will Captain Hook and Cruella DeVille fit side by side with like Maleficent and Hades and Jafar
Right.
and, you know, some of these other more obscure villains that, you know, we're not even predicting that might just show up in this land just so Disney will go like, hey, look, you know, we're not
Yes.
forgetting about anyone here.
Well,
You know,
and you could,
yeah.
100%. And you can even do like crazy stuff with that, where like, let's say you have the magic mirror as the gateway into the land, right? You can kind of take a page out of Universal's playbook with Epic Universe, like a portal style, but it's the magic mirror, and you walk through the magic mirror into the land. But because even in Epic Universe, those portals, they have like these really cool, lighting effects and all that. So you can kind of do that magic mirror kind of vibe as you walk in, and that kind of is your portal into Villains Land. That'd be kind of interesting. But I like that magic mirror kind of tying it all together. That's really, really cool. I really like that a lot.
Logical explanation. Why are all these villains together? You know, like,
Right.
you know, yeah, like if they even go that far, it'll be interesting to just really see how they do it. How do they pull this off?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and one thing too that you know, we had a few rocky years there, you know, during the pandy and stuff. We had Chapek in there. There was a lot of Disney was really going through a seismic shift there, right? We had the pandy, we had a new CEO with Chapek, and then Chapek left, and then Iger came back. So there was a lot of like rockiness. And I think a lot of fans are nervous, and I understand that, but I am very optimistic about the future of Imagineering right now, because I think they're making the right moves. I think Bruce is a very good leader for this division. He's making a lot of smart decisions. They're bringing a lot of the old people back. We just got Jason Sorrell back, you know, from Universal and stuff.
Yep, big one.
Joe Rohde is a consultant. I mean, that's a huge win, you know. So we're getting a lot of the old guard back in here. And look, you know, Bob Iger, for all his flaws and critiques, I mean, Bob Iger 1.0, the first tenure, we saw a lot of great park stuff on his watch. We saw World of Color, DCA DCA 2.0. We saw Pandora over there in Animal Kingdom. There was a lot of cool stuff. So he kind of, as a CEO, understands how to like sort of give the creatives that breathing room and the proper budget to kind of do what they have to do. Now, people will probably point to like Galaxy's Edge and go, but OG, that was disappointing. And yes, to a lot of people that was, but that was also sort of like that was kind of like, that was like Chapek took over. Like, I think Chapek got Galaxy's Edge from Tom Staggs, like in the middle of it, or something like that.
Yeah. It's confusing to like think of like who gets credit for what when it comes to some of these Disney parks decisions, because of these timelines overlap so much, where it's like Iger was there, Iger wasn't there, Chapek was there. But I do think a key under Iger 2.0 was the fact that when Chapek was in charge, and this could have been because the pandemic, and maybe there was, you know, some, you know, they were building streaming, and maybe there was just some other concerns. It really did seem like Chapek, that the cupboards were bare, and it seemed like even in 2022, that D23, it's like they didn't really like, you know, they did the timeline with Josh D'Amaro and stuff, but it really did feel like hands were tied, and it wasn't like they had a big slate coming up of like actual attractions and like what's going to happen. And then in 2024, it seems like they went, yeah, no, we do. And that was like under Iger, and they're like, hey, we got stuff coming, and it's going to come with these timelines and dates. And now, as we've seen, things are getting moved up even quicker. Construction's happening. It seems like Coco is going to probably open a year early now, you know, because it's starting construction earlier. I mean, Avengers Campus, who knows when those expansions open, because I bet they're probably tied heavily into the Avengers film. So they might be not opening as quick as we think, but who knows? It'll be a very interesting future for Walt Disney Imagineering and the Disney parks as a whole.
100%, 100%. And then one last thing I want to talk to with you about before we go is Pandora, because when we were at D23 with Drew and Victoria and the Italiano, we had a great time and the panels were awesome. It was a really, really good time. We were all so excited for all these announcements and all that, right?
Yeah.
Pandora was one of those announcements. Now we knew about it, but this is the first time we actually got some more details about it. But we still didn't know at that event. We still didn't know, where is this thing going? We know DCA, but we didn't know exactly where. Now we know where it's going. It's replacing that Monsters Inc. area in the Hollywood. It's not all of Hollywood land, but
that was the dead space area I was talking to you and George about. And I kept saying to you guys, this is perfect for Avengers. The Avengers should evict Mike and Sully. I mean, it's crazy, because that area is such a dead end that they had just a bunch of photo ops over there. Like they had a WandaVision one at one point. Like, they just, and I think when I was at Disneyland last year, I think there was Deadpool stuff over there maybe. And it's just one of those areas where no wonder Pandora's going there. But I think, OG, it's like, how is this going to work? And also Bob Iger keeps referring to this in so many different ways and people aren't really picking up on it, but it's like, they're not really calling this a land. They're always like using such odd terms where they're like, this is an Avatar area or an Avatar destination or an Avatar experience. Like they're not really committing to like Pandora, where it's like, it does seem like, it's like, we're going to get this Avatar e-ticket.
Right.
But it's like, how is this going to fit? And then it's like, they're keeping the theater allegedly, which is crazy. And then also, you're like, I know Avengers Campus is expanding, but you're also kind of like, interesting, because you would just think Avengers Campus would continue to like swallow up land at DCA until like, there's just no more land to do, or like no more things to build. But now with Avatar, it's just interesting. They're gonna have that section of the park, Avengers, Avatar. There's gonna still be a little bit of Hollywood land. There's gonna be a theater there. Like I don't know how it's gonna work concept wise.
Right. Yeah, that's my thing, right? Like, how is it gonna fit visually all together? Because you're gonna go down Hollywood Boulevard. And you're going to hit the theater at the very end, and to your left, boom, there's Pandora.
Boom. Yeah. I don't know.
How do you segue into that? And here's the thing I was telling George on a recent video, where it's like the wild card with this whole thing, I think also are these movies, right? Because I remember at D23, Josh was saying that these are based on the next 3 films. We have Fire and Ash and then 2 sequels after that.
Yeah.
So it's possible there's some sort of connection to California or something. They go to Earth in one of these movies that everything will kind of gel and make sense. That's a wild card. I don't know. I'm kind of like just tossing it out there, but who knows?
Find out to like 2032 or whatever when they do the Avatar 4 and Avatar 5. But with that franchise, I mean, you never know. Maybe Jake Sully and family do return to Earth because Earth keeps on messing with Pandora, so they take the fight to Earth or something. Like I don't know. And maybe there's a set piece in California, or like I don't remember. Like in the original Avatar, was the on Earth part, was it set in California at any point or no?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't seen that movie in years. I don't think so, but that's a good I gotta look into that.
I remember Way of Water like way more, because that was like in 2022, and like I don't know, maybe it was because it was the first one released under Disney. Maybe it's that Disney bias coming out where you're like, oh, I remember the Way of Water more. It's like, and no, I it's going to be a fun attraction and stuff, but it's like, I just wonder how it works. And like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to rename Disney California Adventure. And I don't see that, because I just don't see them spending money to, make new signs, make new merch, and like, what are you going to call it? Disney Adventure World California? Like,
oh, I hope not.
Exactly. You're kind of like, it's kind of, in my opinion, it's like, be careful what you wish for. I think we should just keep it DCA. It's an adventure we're having in California.
Yeah. I mean, that is a speculation that Pandora would sort of kick off this new direction or this new theme, or I don't know. It's tough. I mean, yeah, I mean, if they find a way to connect it to California, you don't really even have to do that. And some of these movies might hold the key to that, you know? So,
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair though, I mean, you know, it's so funny when we start to like pick and choose which things matter to theming in a Disney park, because it's like Monsters Inc. that ride, not really Californian, but I guess people let it slide because it was in Hollywood land, which is
right.
definitely California based. I mean, it's just interesting. We pick and choose some things on what theming works. And it's like, I think there's some other cases where I think the general audience would be like, cool, give us an Avatar attraction. Similar to how all of us at Walt Disney World were like, hey, we want that Monsters Inc. roller coaster, but we also want the Muppets too. Well, Muppet Vision, like we can have both
Right.
coexist. And
Yeah.
I think for some reason that concept's too hard for some people, just to have things coexist and like not 100% be on theme all the time. And I don't know, it's just very pick and choose sometimes on what things we want to be super hyper ultra realistically themed, and then like
Right.
what things were like, oh, you know, Peter Pan's across the street from It's a Small World, and it's like no one cared about that for 50 years, but now it's a big deal if that would have happened today, or like, you know what I mean,
Oh,
like little things like
oh,
that.
oh, 100%, 100%. I've noticed that too. Like even with like, for example, out here in California, we have DCA and we had the past tense, the red car trolley, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And a lot of fans were upset that it was that it went through like some of Avengers Campus, right? And I understand that. But at Disneyland, you literally have a monorail circling the Swiss Alps, and no one cares.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, that breaks the Swiss Alps theme, like certainly, you know.
Yeah, it's
But that
so,
doesn't matter. But
yeah.
this over here does, and it's just like these arbitrary rules, right? Sort of.
Yeah, and I think it became more like prevalent once they started doing these really immersive themed lands within the themed entertainment industry, like whether it's Galaxy's Edge or Harry Potter, or like, you know, there's all these rules and lore and stuff. But I think it's like not everything needs to be that intense, because like that's what makes those lands so awesome, is because
Yeah.
they're that intense. And like, oh, you're not gonna find a Mickey bar in Galaxy's Edge because like that doesn't go to theme, or you know, you're not gonna, you know, in Pandora, you're not gonna find certain things, and like, you know, because it's not supposed to be like, you know, Disney, you're supposed to be in a different world. But it's like now I feel like it's almost going so far the other way, where it's like we don't really need Monstropolis in Hollywood studios to just justify a new Mike, you know, roller coaster. It's like it's cool that they're doing it and stuff, but it's also like they're reskinning a courtyard. We're gonna gain a restaurant, you know, but like it is also one of those things where it's like I don't necessarily need all that, when it's like I think most people just care about like just get us the door coaster, you know, let
Yeah.
us go on that, you know. I think that's the big selling point.
Oh yeah, 100%. And there is a huge divide with like our nerd bubble and like the normies.
Yeah.
And I've talked about so many times on the channel where it's like the normies are going to eat this stuff up, you
Oh,
know? And
they're gonna love that though. I mean, they're gonna
yeah,
love that land, and they should, because hopefully it ends up being a nice little land. I have my doubts, but that's just because I've been in that area of the park for so many years, as you guys have been into Hollywood land, probably at
right,
Disney California Adventure for so many
right.
years, that you'll probably be able to notice certain things. But with, at least with Avatar, it seems like they have to go so radical with it that it can't look anything like it. Or with Monsters Inc., they're like using the existing architecture. So it's like,
Right.
oh, that's kind of hard, because it's like, oh, that's where that Christmas shop used to be. Or, oh, that was Mama Melrose's, or that's Pizza Rizzo. Like it's going to be a bit tougher for people to really like, at least for me to be like, okay, this is Monstropolis, but hey, if they pull it off, that's going to be amazing. You know, like
Yeah,
if they can get it where it's like, you're like, whoa, what happened to this space? You know, and I
yeah,
think that's the best talent they do, is when they do build a new attraction or retheme something, and you're like, what just happened here? Like,
yeah.
why is this looking like that? Like that's
Oh yeah. No, 100%. And I think that was a good move because the Muppet area, you're already like halfway there with Monstropolis. It's a urban kind of setting, big
Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah.
So you can kind of go in there. Like not everything has to be bulldozed. You can go in there and sort of redress and tinker with it, and voila, you got it. You know, kind of
Yeah.
similar to now. Obviously, Monstropolis will be a much more high budget, big deal than like San Francisco. But just for example's sake, it was sort of the same thing with that. It was like we already have the Bay Area in DCA.
Yeah.
We're halfway to San Francisco because we already have the San Fran end of it. Now all we gotta do is add some Tokyo, and we're good. You know,
I
I mean,
actually really love that re-theme. So if it's anything like San Francisco, I'll probably be for this, you know, because I actually really like that re-theme. I thought they did
me
a
too.
cute job with like the Baymax kind of detail. Like there's just the silly details like throughout the land where it's like Baymax is the restroom, like drawing and like, you know, the lanterns and like, you know, I also just like that part in the park because you can get the Baymax sourdough bread. You have Ghirardelli. Like it's a nice, cool little area within the park and a nice soundtrack too. They play over there, which it's like you do wish there was space for a Big Hero 6 ride because it's
Yes.
like, hey, this would have made this land even better.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, with the J-pop playing, right? That music, and they have the great, like you were saying, the sourdough and all that. And it's really become way more popular than it was before
Oh
with
yeah.
that new theme. People just love it, you know?
And I think that's gonna happen with Monsters as well. Even though
Yep.
I'm a Muppets fan, I think it's gonna happen with Monsters because I think people are gonna be like, we gotta go try Harryhausen's because that's gonna have Asian cuisine, and that's something that's not at the Disney parks, at least in Walt Disney World, currently outside of Epcot, maybe. So they're gonna want to go to Harryhausen's. They're going to want to do that roller coaster, and then whatever they replace Pizza Rizzo with whether it's a pizza place or something else, and if they do an ice cream stand where they call it like ice cream, like, you know, like
Love it.
the pun from Monsters Inc., like I think it's going to be popular. It's just, you know, it's just crazy to see all the puzzle pieces come together because obviously we talked about this before, OG, but it's like them putting monsters there did kind of eliminate them doing a bigger Star Wars presence as well. So it's like if
Right.
they ever want to do more Star Wars, they're gonna have to get creative now. Because it kind of cuts off the whole, you know, the fan theory that like, hey, eventually Star Tours was gonna connect into Galaxy's Edge, and like, you know, that would have been a massive section in the park. You know, no longer can do that now with a
Oh,
big
you're
old
right.
monsters building and like stuff.
That's true. That's a great point. Yeah, they've kind of pulled back. I think they've kind of pulled back on their Star Wars ambitions a little bit. They went really
Yeah.
heavy with it, but I think they kind of pulled back. They're probably thinking, and I think smartly so, where um, you know, let's work on the current lands. Let's fill those lands. Let's populate those lands with new entertainment and new offerings, and sort of make this land what it should be, what we promised everybody, you know, years ago, and kind of would go that route with Galaxy's Edge right now. Maybe add an attraction or something if you can fit
Yeah,
it,
for sure.
but no major expansions. And plus, it also gives Hollywood Studios some variety. Now you're going to have other IPs in there besides just this massive Star Wars thing. You know, you're going to have monsters in there, and we still have the Muppets. We still get a Muppet attraction with Rock and Roller Coaster, so we didn't lose them completely either. And actually,
Yeah.
this is the first real attraction for the Muppets.
Yes, it is. It's the first real attraction ride through. You know, obviously Jim Henson, before he passed, he was working on the Great Muppet Movie Ride, and Imagineering was working on that as well, which would have been a ride through. But this is the Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets. I was hoping we would get an update during this Destination D23, but hey, we just might not. We might just have to rely on Parks Blog because that one's opening next year, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like
Right.
that ride's going to close in early 2026. Yeah, it's going to open in 2026 as well. So it's going to be a quicker retheme. Obviously, Imagineering, as it kind of ramps up back to full strength, you're going to see quicker turnarounds, and you're going to see these attractions go down for shorter periods. And like, you know, they're going to build things up again. And maybe it'll be something where you see it in like the winter of 2026, and that may be a thing that they briefly touch on at D23 2026 as well. They might be like, hey, here's the Muppets thing, it'll be interesting to see if that works. Or I've had a fan theory for a while. I'm like, I don't know if that one's going to be a forever attraction either.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like, where are they holding the cards? Like, what's the grand plan for some of
Right.
these parks? Like, what's the 10-year plan? You know?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Zach, it's always a pleasure having you on. I love talking shop
Always
with you,
fun.
man. Always a good time. Everybody at home, make sure you follow them on Boardwalk Times. Amazing work over there. If you want to give everyone the details, I'll also link it down below, Zach.
Yes, of course. Obviously, you can follow at Boardwalk Times on all social media. I want to specifically shout out our YouTube channel, which we are trying to rebuild. So you're on YouTube, you're watching Orange Grove 55 right now. I would suggest, hey, go watch some Boardwalk Times. One of our
Yes.
contributors, Kyle, he recently did a video on the history of Beastly Kingdom, which was a never built land for Disney's Animal Kingdom. I think a lot of people watching this would like to watch that video as well. So
Absolutely.
go check that out. But yeah, you can follow Boardwalk Times on all of social media, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, wherever you can find us, you should be able to find us. And obviously, you can check us out at boardwalktimes.net as well. And if you're ever looking for merch for whether it's going to the Disney parks or the movie theaters or conventions or in everyday life, you can check out our merch store at boardwalktimes.store as well.
There is. There is. I will be linking all this down below. Check out the YouTube channel and check out all the social media, the merch down below in the description. And Zach, again, thank you so much for joining. And thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today. Destination D, no parks panel, but maybe not necessarily no park announcements. They might sprinkle those in. What are your thoughts on that? D23 last year, how's that shaping up now, 1 year out? Post your comments down below. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching this episode of OG55.
Thank you so much for watching OG55. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and become a member today.